What's up, guys? This is Maxwell Media Inc. I'm your host, Sir Maxwell, and today we are going to get into the Schnee family dynamics. The Schnees are basically like the Kardashians of the RWBY universe. We got Weiss and Whitley and Winter and Willow and Jacques and they're living their lives and they're rich and they're famous and they're profitable and this and that. You know what I mean? So, and they're very interesting. The Schnee family is very, very interesting because they're fucked up and they're toxic, but like in a very like interesting, relatable way that's like unique, but also like tragically common. And I just really wanted to get into that. First, I want to say thank you if you're here. Haven't seen my face before, Sir Maxwell Media Inc. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Really helps me out. We're trying to grow a fan base. And also, I want to say thank you to everyone in the RWBY community that has supported my latest video with Fat Man Falling. Right here, check that out, Fat Man Falling. We talked about racism in RWBY, and we kind of like went into everything. We went there with Adam and Blake and Ilya and White Fang and Gira and Sienna. We talked about everything. The only thing we didn't talk about, we talked about the Schnees a little bit. We didn't get too much into the Schnees, but this video is kind of talking about the Schnees. But it's a prelude to a video that I'm making. I'm working on breaking down the racism in RWBY, kind of where I went wrong, why it's problematic, how it's hurtful, how it could have been better. Look out for that. It'll come out months later because I'm really working hard on it. But thank you for that. Thank you for everyone in the community that's liked, tweeted, retweeted, commented. Thank you for everyone who's given me so much support. I was really nervous releasing that. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I'm really fucking grateful. Anyway, let's get into the video. Let's get into the Schnees. So the Schnees are they're a toxic family. They're a fucked up family. Now, while doing some research before this video, I kind of watched this video about the different types of dysfunctional families. I'm going to link that up here or down there, whatever. It'll be here. But I'm kind of going to break down the different types of like dysfunctional families. So you have the chronic conflict family. In the chronic conflict family, they're always fighting. They're always hurting each other, either physically or emotionally. And it's normally bred from a toxic parenting style. And they really use like fear for control. And it really causes all types of deep psychological issues with the children. Now you could say, oh, this is the Schnee family. But we're not there yet. Let's go to the second type of dysfunctional family. There's the pathological family, where it's where health issues kind of fuck up the family dynamics, and health issues affect the family's everyday life, because through the sickness of a family member. Maybe it's like your grandma, your grandpa, or normally it's like one of the parents, and then like since one of the parents is like sick and they're dealing with illnesses like cancer or diabetes or something bad, or a lot of times maybe even like depression or alcoholism. Or, addiction, like kind of with Willow. So, that's also something that can come up in this type of family. And it normally causes the kids to have to step up since one or both of the parents is not able to. So that is another interesting type of family. And let's move on to the number 3. We have the chronic household. Due to a poor structure. This is where people who don't really have much of a structure, and it's kind of like flying by the seat of your pants type of parenting style. And there's nothing really wrong with being free-spirited, but children, especially little kids, need things like a bedtime, and they need to eat certain times of the day, and sometimes depending on how young they are, they need a nap. You know what I mean? They need to be changed at a certain time. You know what I mean? Like they need a schedule and a routine. So and families that don't really have any of this, it's just kind of chaos and that could also lead to some dysfunctional children who don't really respect authority, or they don't really have a real grasp of anything in terms of structure when they grow up as an adult. So that could also be a different type of dysfunctional family. And also, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist. This is from a psychology type of YouTube channel. So, like I said, I'm linking that, but I'm in no way professional. So don't take what I'm saying as hard facts. This is the hard facts. But yeah, we also have the dom sub household, the dominant submissive household, and this is the one that I think most fits the Schnee family because one parent is a dictator while the other one kind of while the other one is like passively obedient, and they don't really, and the dominant parent doesn't really care about the feelings of like the rest of his family, or sorry, the rest of their family. They don't really care about that. It's like their way or the highway. And the other parent just kind of passively like sits there, and no one's really happy. He kind of, I keep spilling the tea and saying what I think. No, the dominant parent normally is like really controlling and makes all of the decisions, and they don't really, take any consideration for their family, leading to their family to be miserable, and nobody really stands up to them because they're the one in charge and they're really abusive and XYZ. And this causes a lot of negative emotions, and all of the family members suffer through the actions of, the dictator parent. And then we have the emotionally distant family as number 5. And the emotionally distant family, nothing really seems to be wrong. When you look on the inside, there's no love, there's no affection, there's no hugs, like there's nothing. You know what I mean? And everyone's just kind of like distant, and they all deal with their problems on their own. Now, listing out all of these types of dynamics, you could say the Schnees kind of pull pieces from all of these. The Schnees could really like fit into any of these boxes, but I feel like the dominant submissive household is the one that fits the Schnee family the most. Now I'm going to kind of get into the Schnee family bit by bit, and I'm going to get into the Schnee family, by each member of it. Now let's start with the guy that started the legacy, and he started it all. Let's talk about Nicolas Schnee. So Nicolas Schnee was a guy who he worked with his father a lot. He went to combat training, you know what I mean? He just wanted to better his kingdom because Mantle, which would later become Atlas, was kind of in this like developmental stage, you know what I mean, after the Great War. And he kind of just wanted to find something, a big energy boom that would like revitalize his nation. You know what I mean? So, he used to work in the dust mines with his dad. When his dad died, his dad kind of left him everything. And, it was enough for him to go out and find this big boom. And he kind of went on these expeditions, kind of like an adventure style, to go out and find, dust and things of that nature. And he found it, and he found a lot of shit. And, the Schnee name started to mean something. And he started building a brand and building a company. And he would actually go out on these expeditions and risk his life with the other workers. And that got him a lot of street cred. A guy who people like a guy who isn't gonna ask you to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. You know what I mean? Like if someone's gonna ask me to run a marathon, like it's gonna make me feel a lot better and more inclined to run that marathon, like if they're gonna run it with me. So you know what I mean? It's kind of gives like we're all in this together like vibes. You know what I mean? So that is definitely something that I respect, and I understand why other people respected him. You know what I mean? It meant the Schnee name meant quality, and affordability, and dependability. You know what I mean? He had those good old-fashioned, old funky values, and people were living for it. They loved it. You know what I mean? They had no choice but to stand. So Nicolas Schnee really built that brand, and built that name for the Schnee family. Unfortunately, going on all those expeditions, he got really sick. You know what I mean? He had a family, but Jacques, I think Jacques Jules, Jacques son, maybe it was Jacques son, y'all. And he came in and he was like, "Hi, I'm going to take your company to the next level." And he was kind of like a Trump guy. He was kind of like, "I'm a hardcore businessman," and blah 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 blah. And you know what I mean? Kind of that guy who's kind of willing to do anything to win. And when he came in, it was just kind of like, we're not going in great values. We're not really doing all of that shit. We're not really. But he married into the family. He took on the Schnee name, and he took it in a more corporate power like situation. Crushed the little man. You know what I mean? He did whatever it took to win. He had horrible working conditions. No, we canceled. No job. We're not into it. He's not really someone who cares about people. He only really cares about winning. You know what I mean? And I have some, notes about Jacques and his personality. Jacques is an authoritarian parent. So what that means is like he tries to build his children up through extrinsic motivation. as if they're animals. It's like, okay, if you don't do this, you know, you won't get smacked, or you won't get punished, or you won't get this taken away. You know what I mean? And that could work for a while, but like I said, because he does that, that's what we do with animals. And although we are animals, humans are a little bit different because, you know, we kind of have a little bit of a, you know, we think, you know what I mean? We were able to process information at a better, you know, rate than animals. You know, we're not animals in that sense. So, you know what I mean? So that's not going to work forever. So, you know what I mean? Like, but he doesn't really get that. He's kind of like a my way or the highway, and he's kind of willing, he doesn't really give a fuck. Like, he will crush his own children to get what he wants. He will crush his wife to get what he wants. He didn't even really want his wife. He just married her for the Schnee name. You know what I mean? He never really loved Willow. He just, you know, wanted that Schnee name. I don't know. Maybe he did. Who knows? But, like, he says he didn't. So, trash man, in my opinion. It's implied that he's abusive to Willow. You know what I mean? We haven't really seen it, but obviously, like, through the context of what's going on, I think we're supposed to assume that he's abusive to Willow and all of his children. Yes, I said all of them. That includes Whitley. We'll get there. Yeah. So that's the thing. Jacques, not a great guy. He has no redeeming qualities. He's not even really funny. He's not charismatic. He has nothing. No, we're not supposed to like Jacques, and I have no problems not liking Jacques. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, Jacques is kind of trash. Let's go on to Willow. She's an alcoholic. That's her main personality as of late. We don't really know much about Willow, except that she's Nicolas Schnee's daughter, and, you know, she uses glyphs, and she's pretty. But no, through like the DC comic and things, we kind of get more of a grasp on Willow. Willow kind of sees people as possessions, and that's kind of because she kind of thinks of herself as a possession. She kind of like thinks that she can kind of like buy people, and she kind of has this like kind of snobby, upper echelon attitude. But you can tell it's kind of through years of trauma, and I don't know. Like, when we see her in volume 7, during Quarterly Invited, she seems like very beaten down. It feels like she's been very defeated. You know what I mean? She feels like she's kind of waiting for basically Dr. Keller in her sleep. You know what I mean? And she kind of, I don't know I don't know exactly why she drinks, but it feels like she uses drinking to kind of numb herself from the constant pain that she's in. But she also seems to be very lonely, kind of like Weiss, you know what I mean? She kind of feels like, you know, a caged bird, and you know what I mean? And you kind of see this through how she views herself and the rest of the women in her family through, you know, the DC comic, when she's kind of like has the menagerie of animals, and how she kind of has the fauna kind of chained up, you know, all this other shit. So, you know, Willow is kind of a product of her environment. I don't know. I don't think her father taught her these values, but I definitely think after years of being with Jacques, these kind of like methods kind of rubbed off on her. In terms of her parenting style, she doesn't really have one because she's not really a parent. Oof, that's the tea. Here's the thing with Willow as a parent. A lot of people are like, Willow was a victim of Jacques' abuse. You know, if you say that Willow, you know, is a bad mom, if you say Willow was abusive, if you say Willow was bad, then, you know, you're blaming her for her abuse. Listen, sis. Love Willow. I have no ill feelings against Willow. But that's not how that works. Like, yes, definitely Willow was a victim. I think Willow's a victim, and I think Willow has been through a lot of shit. And I feel really bad for Willow. But you're a mom. Come on, mama. Like, you're a mom. And it's your when you're a parent and you're there, it's your responsibility to look after your babies. And kind of seems like you've just been sitting by while your husband is abusing your babies. And that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's your job to be there. It's your job to get your kids out of that situation. It's your job to stop him. Like, it's not Weiss's job. Now, I'm glad Weiss is doing something about her life and her family and her situation. But her mom should be the one fighting for her. Her mom, you know, Klein helped her get out. Her mom should have done that, not Klein. You know what I mean? And I feel like through the DC comic, honestly, go watch Kyle Axon's video with her breaking down the DC comic. I'm gonna link that down below. Kyle Axon, I love you. I stand you. You're a queen. Everything. Yeah. So Willow's parenting, like, she kind of wasn't there for her kids, and it's kind of obvious. Like, I feel like the implications that she was an absentee mother is just as obvious as the implications that she's an abuse victim. And I sympathize with her, and I feel so bad for her. But that doesn't absolve you of your responsibility in being there for your children. So, that is the tea. That is the mindset. And I hope that she gets better. And through the DC comic, maybe she has gotten better through what we see in the DC comic and her conversations with Weiss. Honestly, go read the DC comic, love it. Go do that. And we kind of see how she kind of takes that responsibility in chapter 7. In chapter 8 of volume 7 or whatever. She's kind of like, you left him alone with us, implying that she also feels bad. Like she also knows that she had a hand to play in the downfall of, and why her children are the way they are. You know what I mean? So yeah, basically I feel like Willow was an abuse victim. We should feel bad for Willow. But also like Willow is an adult, she's a grown-ass woman, she's a mom, and she had responsibilities that she didn't really live up to. But she's not a perfect character, and that's fine. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. Anyway, let's move on. Winter, she is the oldest member of the Schnee children, this next generation of Schnees. And Willow is a free bird. She is kind of she's kind of the antithesis of her mother, if that makes any sense. But she has a lot of hard feelings about her upbringing and her past. You kind of can assume she had a similar feeling to Weiss, feeling isolated, alone. There's no one really there for her. And of course, she had to deal with the expectations of her father, being the first heir and all this other shit. But you know what I mean? But she kind of rejects all of that. She kind of went out and she made her own life for herself. And she joined the military. She got a new daddy, whether that be a father figure daddy or like, I'm going to ride you all night kind of daddy. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? But she got a new daddy and she is in the military. She's kind of formed her own identity, and she's made a destiny that is her own. You know what I mean? Even though Ironwood kind of groomed her to become the Winter Maiden, she, at the end of the day, she chose that for herself. It's something that she wanted, and she takes great pride in it, and I really love that about Winter. She wants to put her own legacy outside of the Schnee Dust Company. Honestly, Winter could sit outside and watch the manor and the Schnee legacy burn to the fucking ground, and she'd be like sitting there sipping her tea light. Like, she wouldn't really give a fuck. She could care less about the Schnee family or the Schnee brand. She talks to Weiss and she's like, you can join the military, we can leave him behind. Weiss doesn't really want to do that, but Winter, she wants to leave all of it behind. She could care less about it, to the point where she doesn't even use dust. You know what I mean? Like, when Weiss is the dust queen, she uses fire and ice and gravity and earth dust, and lightning dust. When she doesn't do that, she has her sword, she has her aura, she has her summoning. She does not use dust. She's never used dust. She doesn't use dust. It's not a thing that she does. And I think that's very intentional, because she doesn't want anything to do with the Schnee Dust Company. She doesn't want anything to do with the Schnee Dust Company. Now, I think obviously she knows how to use dust, but I feel like if she were ever to use dust, it wouldn't be from the Schnee Dust Company. And I feel like through Flint Cold, we see that like it's hard to find dust that is not connected to the Schnee Dust Company. Because, Jacques will run you out of business. He'll put the black man out of business just for Flint Cold's family. Anyway, so yeah, Winter, she doesn't really give a fuck about this whole Schnee family legacy. She doesn't use their products. She doesn't go and visit. She doesn't talk to her mom. She sure as hell doesn't talk to her dad. Doesn't fuck with her brother. She only really fucks with Weiss. And she's really kind of taken on Weiss as kind of like a surrogate daughter. And she looks out for her. She loves her. She protects her. You know what I mean? She kind of provides that structure for Weiss that her parents didn't provide for her. And they're not providing for Weiss or Whitley. So, basically what I'm saying is Winter is best mom. And she has a real protective nature. She doesn't really find much pride in the Schnee Dust Company, but she does find a lot of pride in the military. She has a lot of pride in Atlas in general. She kind of takes on this whole, like, we are a military superpower, we are the best, we are elite, we are X, Y, and Z, and she feels like whatever the general has to say, that is law, is what it is. She has kind of this thing of grappling with her own personal feelings, but at the end of the day, she's like, okay, I could have my personal feelings, but I should do what I'm told. in that sense. And that's because she has faith in the general and what the general has. You know, she kind of believes in like, you know, sacrificing the needs of a few for the needs of the many. You know what I mean? And that's a really interesting type of character, and it would have been interesting to see what type of maiden she would be. But unfortunately, she did not get that chance. But yeah, she didn't really have a relationship with anybody in her family except for Weiss. Well, speaking of Weiss, let's move on to Weiss. She's kind of a lot. So Weiss is the Ice Queen. We love her. We stand her. She's everything. She didn't really start out great. She's kind of lonely. She kind of feels like a caged bird, just like her mother. So, connections. Anyway, so she kind of feels like a caged bird. She kind of doesn't really feel like she is who she is. She kind of has this duality to her, like the mirror. You know, mirror. Yeah, she kind of feels like who she looks at in the mirror isn't really her. Kind of feels like she has like the person that she wants to be and the person who she is, and the person that like, or rather like the person who she really is and the person that people want her to be and her father wants her to be. And she kind of like shatters that mirror, and she kind of is like, no bitch, we're not split in two anymore. Like we're one. Like, you know what I mean? It's no longer this two Weiss, two different Weisses. It's one Weiss. It's one Weiss, and it's a fuck you to Jacques. You know what I mean? So Weiss kind of, her story has been kind of finding her own individuality. But also, Weiss is very patriotic. She loves her country. She finds great pride in Atlas. She's always in her family. More importantly, her family. She finds great pride in the Schnee name. She wouldn't shut the fuck up about the Schnee name in season volume 1. You know, she finds great fucking pride in it. You know what I mean? And not from like a we're better than you sense. Well, maybe she used to because she was a bitch. Sorry. But yeah, but through like the moralistic values of her grandfather, Nicolas, she wants that Schnee company. She wants like a strong, loyal, dependable like family that helps the world. She's kind of in a place in her life where she's like, hi, I'm a white cis human woman, and you know I'm gonna use my privilege to uplift minorities. And love that. I love that. She's literally like the best ally, best queen. That's kind of where she is in her life. She wants to redeem the family name. She wants to kind of take it out of the direction that her father went with it. You know, I was talking about this with Fat Man Falling. She is a person who came into Beacon just kind of running away. She was kind of getting away from her father. And, you know, that's kind of what she wanted in the beginning. But then once Volume 2 rolls around, she realizes that, you know, especially when she spends time with Blake, and she kind of has some time in the outside world, she's kind of knocked off her high horse, and she's like, wow, we're like fucked up. Like, I've been through some shit, but we're fucked up, and we need to change it, and we need to fix it. And, you know, especially, you know, she goes from calling, you know, son Faunus filthy Faunus trash to, like, throwing racists in the garbage. You know what I mean? Like, what a queen. Like, what an ally. You know what I mean? So I just feel like Weiss is the embodiment of growth and change for someone who's an ally. Now, while I do have some issues with Weiss and kind of like how fast that was, you know, what that means in terms of Blake's character, that is a different conversation. But yeah, we see the most of her interactions with her mother and her father and her sister. Not much with Whitley, but we'll get to Whitley. She kind of has this kind of like weird relationship with her mother, where like she knows her mother's fucked up, and she knows her mother is, you know, not a perfect person, and she kind of accepts that. She's kind of in a place with her mom where she's like, wow, my mom was really fucked up, but she can't really be there for me, and I feel really bad for her. You know what I mean? Her dad is like, fuck you, you're a soulless human being, and I hate you. But genuinely, I hate you. And with her mother, she's like, you know, I love you, and you know, you're really fucked up, but I know why you're fucked up. And, you know, I'm gonna break that cycle. You know what I mean? Weiss is gonna break the cycle of trauma and abuse and pain and racism and classism and sexism. She's gonna break all the barriers, you know what I mean? That's kind of Weiss's role in her family. She's kind of black sheep, even more so than Winter, because even Winter, like she kind of earned her way out of the family. She kind of like she did something respectable basically. She wouldn't join the military she wouldn't join Alice's military, and I feel like that was the only really out for a Schnee that's societally acceptable. I feel like going away to another kingdom and like basically being radical and caring about people and doing all that shit openly is kind of more of a black sheep rebellion thing. Like Winter's rebellion is I'm joining the military and I'm gonna like not be a Schnee. Weiss's rebellion is no, I am a Schnee. I am this legacy bitch. I built this fucking house. You know what I mean? That's Weiss's legacy. She's going to do it while spitting in the face of all of the bad shit. She's gonna tear down the bad shit and she's gonna build up the good shit. So, and she's gonna do that openly and loudly and proudly. And that's why she's more of a black sheep of the family, because it's like, wow, like Winter, you know, she joined the military and shit, but like you're actively like saying fuck this family and you're gonna burn this shit down. So we kind of stand by. She's kind of a queen. Her relationship with her father is pretty self-explanatory. He's controlling and abusive, and she is not going to stand up for that shit anymore. So she's gone. You know, she's kind of... And yikes. Jacques is just not great. No redeeming qualities. No redeeming qualities with Jacques. She kind of has her confidence, because she kind of found her family. Like, Weiss is like, no, we're not friends. We're fucking family, bitch. Like, these are my sisters. These are my sisters. Yeah, so Weiss and her father were not... No. Weiss and her brother, that is a thing. See, after this, we're gonna move on to Whitley. Weiss is kind of view Whitley as like, wow, he's like a mini dad. I think Weiss sees her brother like most of the audience sees her brother, where it's like, wow, he's a mini Jacques, and he's just grow up to be just like my father, and he hates me, and XYZ. No, Whitley wants nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? And she kind of doesn't really understand, just like most of the fandom doesn't understand. Whitley is her. She's Whitley. They're the same fucking bitch. They're the same person. Like, there's no difference. They are the exact same bitch. And what I mean by that is like, Whitley's like fucking 14. She's like around Oscar's age. Weiss was like 18, like 19. Like, Weiss, when you were Whitley's age, you were probably a big bitch. Like, no shade. Actually, no, fuck that. All shade. All tea, all shade. Weiss was a big fucking bitch. She was racist. She was gross. She was classist. She was a lead. She was a bully bitch. Like, Weiss was a low down, dirty, just a rotten, dirty bitch. Weiss was not good. Not a good person. She just wasn't. She just was not a good person. Point blank, period. You know what I mean? Like, she, like, you know, basically, and the thing with Whitley is like, oh, he stole her, he got her inheritance. And it's like, Whitley had no control over that, you know what I mean? Like, Whitley may have wanted it to happen, but it's like not his fault, and he didn't plan it, and it's not his, like, you know what I mean? And at one point, that was Weiss, you know, Winter left, and then Weiss got the name. And also, Weiss kind of tried to do the same thing with RWBY on a smaller sense. You know, it wasn't like a lifetime inheritance, but it was like, okay, you were the leader, and you earned this leader spot, but I'm going to go, and I'm going to try to go around you and try to take your position. Like, that was wild and fucked up and entitled. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Weiss used to be fucking Whitley. You know what I mean? And Whitley didn't have the opportunity that Weiss had and that Winter had. And maybe once he gets to the opportunity, he'll change. But who knows? Now, let's move on to Whitley. Whitley, I relate to Whitley a lot because I'm kind of literally in the same situation as him. Basically, I'm the youngest boy. I'm the youngest of three, and I'm the only boy. I have two older sisters, and they're drastically older. I have one that's a little older than me, and then I have one that's way older than me. And you know what I mean? I literally kind of have the same sort of family dynamics, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you're closer to the one that's directly above you, but you kind of maybe have some stuff, and then you have the older one, and you know what I mean? And where it's like, okay, you don't really have that much of a thing. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I can sort of relate to Whitley in that sense. I kind of know what it's like to be like, okay, you're not really around. Like, you're not around. And you don't get to come in and, you know, proclaim this shit and make all these judgments when you're not around. And I really get that. I really vibe with that. Whitley's kind of like the one that no one really thinks about. Like even when you go to her manga, Weiss's manga comic, Whitley was like, "Hey sister, do you want to play?" And she was just kind of like, "No, I'm busy being emo and sad." No one really thinks about Whitley really at all. You know what I mean? Like Willow has to be like, "Hey, Weiss, remember your brother." She's like, "But he hates me. He hates me." And she's like, "You left him alone, bitch. Like you're not there." You know what I mean? He's literally in the same hellhole that they were. And I know people think, like, "Oh, he's the only boy. Like he's popped up." I know what it's like to be the only boy, and that is a lot of pressure. That is a lot of expectation. You know what I mean? And that is just a lot of shit. And it's weird and wrong that people think that Wilby cannot be an abuse victim because he is a boy and because his father treats him well publicly. You know what I mean? Like, he, fucking Jacques and Whitley, that's a public thing. When they're in public, they're like, "Huh, my father's victory," and blah, blah, blah. But behind closed doors, it's like, "Whitley, shut the door!" Like, you know what I mean? Like, he treats Whitley like a fucking piece of shit. You know what I mean? Behind closed doors. So, I know with this whole, like, "Oh, he's the favorite child. He's the golden boy." Yeah, publicly. Probably, like, Weiss was the golden girl publicly at one point in time. So, you know what I mean? Whitley doesn't really have a relationship with his mom. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of, like, really close to his father. And his father, I don't know, he kind of just wants to please his father. That's kind of what he lives for. It's kind of his only fucking personality. And then he's kind of, like, really into himself. He's really into the Schnee family name, but more in a toxic way, more in a mini Jacques way. And that's because Jacques is kind of, you know, has a tighter grasp on Lily. It's the first time with Winter, he probably gave her too much time to make decisions. And then with Weiss, you know, she went to Beacon. You know, Whitley is the kid who he's like, I have a tight grasp on, and he's not going to let go of. He's not going to let go of Whitley unless, you know, he's forced off. Which I think him being arrested is kind of like, this is a chance for Whitley to kind of like grow out of, you know, his father's shadow. And I don't know, I just feel really fucked up for Whitley, because Whitley probably goes through a lot of shit. The family shits on him because, you know, he's Whitley. I don't know. And it's, I don't know. And I don't really think it's fair for people to demonize Whitley because he doesn't have a great relationship with his sister. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a thing. And I feel like Weiss, I think part of Weiss redeeming her family name is helping all of the members of her family, except for her father. Her father's trash. So, you know, help your brother out. You know what I mean? And Whitley doesn't really, like, Whitley basically sees things as Jacques sees them. He kind of has the same mindset as Jacques, and that's because he's not allowed to make opinions. He lives in a big-ass fucking mansion in the sky. Like, Whitley, he has no worldview. He's an entitled, spoiled little twink boy. It's like he doesn't really, you know, I don't really know how you expect him to be. Like, he's basically worse Weiss. He's like basically Volume 1 Weiss, but worse. I don't really know what else to say. Like, you know, Whitley, he's immature and he's bratty and he's snobbish. And, you know, people who are more evolved and have grown out of that are like, wow, you're an asshole. But RWBY, Weiss was an asshole. She said Ruby was literally like, you're a jerk and I hate you, because she was a bitch. You know? Blake was like, you're a spoiled, entitled little girl. You know what I mean? You know, Yang is the only one who really didn't go off on her. You know what I mean? Actually, Yang at one point was like, wow, you had a big family, you know, all this shit. And Weiss was like, hey, bitch, like, I had a heart like too. You know what I mean? Like, so Weiss should know what it's like for people to judge you based off only what they think they see. I don't know, a lot of Whitley, because we don't know a lot about Whitley. So that's why a lot of what I'm going on with Whitley and how we interact with his family is like, from what other people say of him, because we basically only see how others view him rather than like Whitley himself. I would love to see like more of Whitley and his interpersonal shit, but Volume 8 is probably gonna, is like they said, it's gonna take over a couple of days. So I don't really think we're gonna see much of Whitley. Hopefully we get to see Whitley and Willow and, you know, see what's happening and Weiss stay for family, but, you know, maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. The Schnee family, they're very complicated and they're very toxic and they're very like, I don't know, like with the trio of the three of them, they're kind of really disconjointed. A lot of that has to do with age. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because like when you're aged, when you're the youngest, you know, someone's older, someone's like over a decade older than you, you're not really gonna have that much of a connect because they're gonna grow up and they're gonna go have their own life. But then like when they're having their own life, you're kind of there at home alone. You know what I mean? And then you have the older one who's kind of out, you know, a little one who's a little bit older than you, like doing their thing. But again, like they're out there living life, and it's like you're still there and you're still growing up. And I feel like we have to give him that allowance to grow up. I feel like Weiss and Winter have their own dynamic, and that dynamic often leaves out Whitley. Weiss and Winter have each other's back. Weiss and Winter are sister girlfriends. Like, where is Whitley in that? Like, where is Whitley? And yes, part of it is like he's not open to that, but like you kind of have to try if you want that. You know what I mean? And I feel like since they're at the point of being more evolved, they could do that if they wanted to. And a lot of people say that like, oh, we're blaming his sisters for, you know, his toxic behavior. No, we're not. We're just saying like, okay, they weren't there. Like that's just a fact. We're not trying to blame their victims. We're not trying to blame victims of abuse. But I'm saying that, you know, that's just why he doesn't really fuck with them, because he feels abandoned by them. All of the Schnee kids are lonely. They're lonely. They're super lonely. Link to that song. I love that song. The song is a good song. But yeah, no, yeah. So, you know, they just gotta try. And I don't want to sound like I'm blaming them, but it just feels, you know, and often a lot of times in an abusive household, when older siblings get out, you know, the younger sibling kind of feels kind of betrayed and abandoned by them, leaving and, you know, getting out of that. And a big thing with that is like, they don't necessarily, because they're not the parents. Obviously, at the end of the day, it falls more on Willow than it does on Winter and Weiss. But if Winter and Weiss were going to be all high and mighty and more evolved and have the moral high ground in their relationship with Whitley, they have to understand that Whitley is literally a child. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna hold Whitley to the same standard as I'm not gonna hold a 14-year-old Whitley to the same standard that I hold, you know, a 25-year-old Winter or like a 43-year-old Willow. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not. You know what I mean? Because he's a fucking child. When I was 14, you know, I wasn't a horrible person. You know what I mean? I wasn't like a Whitley, but like I had a lot of like fucked up ideas and shit. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't fully mature. You know, I'm 19. I'm still not fully, you know, developed. I'm Weiss's age, and I'm still not, you know, 100% there. You know what I mean? I'm still growing to do. I'm still learning to do. So I just feel like we just need to give Whitley more of that leeway. I don't know why this became a defending Whitley video, but I guess it is. Like, oof, like, sorry. They don't really have a unit family dynamic because they don't really function as a unit. They function as a bunch of different pieces of a shattered mirror. Like think of their family being whole as like a big mirror, and think of it being shattered into a bunch of pieces. You have a piece over here and a piece over there, and you know when the pieces fall, some pieces are closer, like Weiss and Winter, but then some pieces are just so far apart, like everyone from their fucking everyone from Jacques, or like Willow from Weiss, or like Winter. Like Winter didn't even think to go up and speak to her mother, because they don't fuck with each other like that. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. The Schnee family, honestly, Eruption Fang made a video about Whitley and him being a victim. Go watch that. He's very insightful. Love him. Like, no choice but to stand. And, you know, Kyle Axon, like I said, Kyle Axon made videos about, you know, Willow and shit. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. We're really trying to grow this channel up. And yeah, this is Maxo Media Inc. I'm your host, Maxo. May the power protect you. Bye.